Hello, people. Welcome to another edition of Friday Night Knives here on A Dose of Drew. I am said Drew, and tonight I am actually not going over knives. I'm going to be going over pocket pry bars and multi-tools because let's be honest, even a regular pry bar does have multiple uses because it's essentially a really small, strong lever, which gives it a lot of different uses as that's what you need leverage for. This is not about things like this, which is a fantastic thing, but it's all of these in one plus. So we'll talk about it. Most all of these are going to be under 4 inches, so it can fit in the pocket easy or in a wallet carry. Similar to something like this, where I have, as you can see, the Nixabus Special Gem Wallet Carry Blade HQ. It is great for the wallet carry. Things that will fit in here, like these Leatherman's. Full disclosure, I do not believe you can purchase these Leatherman tools anymore. These are here as a illustrative purposes, and both as the lever and how you can have multiple uses in there. Things like the TNP tiebreaker that do indeed fit quite well. Vero Engineering as well as some rest. This is the kind of thing you can fit it in a pocket, a fifth pocket, a keychain in some instances, or just in a wallet if you have one of those multi-wallet carries. Again, approximately all the same size. There's the inches if you need it. And as always, we always need to check and make sure that we understand this is the size of my Wienar compared to this. As you can see, all of these things are smaller and they make my Wienar look huge, which is always a good thing. All right. So, right on to it. First things first, as I said, the Leatherman are no longer purchasable, I believe. They came in a series. You can get different ones, different sizes, whether it be metric and all that stuff. The interior bits of these have different sizes, different purposes and uses. The one in here that is most basic is this. This is an Amazon special, no name Chinese somewhere, something manufactured. This is just a hunk of mild steel with a hole mitered out of it, a wedge ground on there, and it rounded off so you can get a little bit of torque moment that's nice on there, and then sanded down and probably heat treated to make it decent. It's good, and it's obviously stronger than any amount of force that something like my fingers can generate. And I could probably put this under something and even step on it, and it would generate a fair amount of leverage. The longer the lever, the more the leverage and force generated over a smaller distance. As long as it doesn't exceed the capability of the material of the lever. Having said, that's all a pry bar really is a lever. By putting that angle on there and then flipping it over, you actually give it a bit of an angle, and if it's rounded or it has a transition right here that you can use, that gives you a bit of traction. It also gives you a nice curve as far as the torque applied at one end. This is basic. I keep this on my desk. This actually does not go in my wallet, doesn't go on my keychain, though you could with that hole on there. The size of this is nice that you have these smaller bits, such as the 1/8-inch bits or a driver. This is sized so that it will be able to be to turn them, which is nice. It's a little bit loose, but it's not loose enough that you'll strip them out. It's just it has right angles instead of the hex, and so it'll work on. It'll work on pretty much anything on the smaller end of the bit size. Is it useful? Yeah. I keep it on my desk so that I can use it without if I need a thing and I'm sitting in my office chair or something like that, I don't have to stand up, get out my wallet, get out one of my other pry bars and do it. If I'm already standing or something like that. But if I need it right here, this is actually the pry bar that I use. It's handy that way. The next up on the list here is this. This actually comes from EDC Specialties. I will put a link in the description to them. This is a Meritech 3-inch pry bar. It has the nail puller bit in there. It has as well as the split, so that you can get it under the head of a nail, anything like that, and try and pry nails. Relatively small area for the leverage part, for the angle. But that allows you to really maximize the leverage. This one is really easy to carry in pretty much any sort of wallet because it fits even like where credit cards will go. Extraordinarily useful and easy to carry. It's so easy to carry that if you don't have it on something like a keychain or in a wallet, you can forget that it's in your freaking pocket. This thing is super light and very, very handy in that it does not, like, you can put this underneath. This one's relatively heavy. This is about 3 times as heavy as this is, and with that hole, you can also put this on a keychain. It's thin enough to slide. You can have this on your keychain, and you have an actual pry bar that allows you to get stuff, scrape anything. I mean, that amount of steel is strong enough for anything your fingers can handle most of the time. Most people, 99% of the people, 99% of the time, this. If you're someone like Hafthor Bjornsson or Eddie Hall or, a number of other strong men out there, or people that have the grip strength enough that you could probably bend this with your bare hands, this is probably bigger than 2 or 3, or smaller than 2 or 3 your fingers just put on it anyway. So it would be hard for you to get that much leverage on a 3-inch pry bar. But that's the idea, that this could handle quite a bit of torque and force, and what most people's hands will be able to deal with. It's slim. It fits pretty much anywhere, which is nice. And again, just about any wallet, even if it's not a regular wallet, anything that fits in a credit card, it can fit inside. Like if you have a bifold wallet, this fits to go into a wallet. Very, very well sized for a carry, and it's inexpensive. It is made in the USA. It's basically tool steel that's been machined. I believe it used to be $12 back when I got this. It may have gone up to 15 in that time. This was a couple years ago, and as we all know, prices of pretty much everything have gone up. Before I get on to these other super dupers, I want to talk a little bit about the Leathermans and how these things are. Because these are pretty cool as far as they are. And I really hate that Leatherman as well. They probably didn't sell a whole bunch of them. These can't be that difficult or expensive to make, but they are really nice as far as it goes, with things like having a small amount of leverage, a bottle opener that also works as a handle. Like, again, it's not magnetic, but if you can put something, a bit or a drive or anything like that, this is a 1/4 inch hex drive right there. Other sizes, other sizes are in here if you have nuts, but a 1/4 inch screw or hex drive screw, this'll do it. And all of them will. That is true of every single one. That bottle opener is also a hex drive wrench on every single one. Right, so if you look in here, I don't know, I can't get that. Right, so these are all different sizes in there, but yeah. And then you have smaller bits, scraping bits. There's lots of cool little things that you can get just by machining particulars. There's even something that says that you can gauge wire or strip wire with some of these things. I haven't been able to. I would try it within here, but this gets you the best of both worlds. You get a wide bit with a small screw head, something you can do to leverage. This is also, a bottle opener. Like there's so much you can do with these small little pieces. I lament that these are no longer for sale, because these are great little tools that also, much like the Meritech, were not very expensive. They weren't cheap. They were inexpensive. Again, it's not a lot of material and basically some machining costs. So you could get them at a relatively low price for a very useful tool. Now, moving on to, this is a hard one, Vero Engineering. And I'm going to go on in here because this is really nice. This is a titanium pry bar. For those who don't know, those stick, but the pry bar does not. So it has a space to hold its smaller bits. It has a pocket clip that is built in. And it has a hex drive on the end that has a magnet in it. This is a fantastic thing without pulling those out because these little rubber things are difficult. It is a smaller 1/8" drive, hex drive, with a magnetized bit in there that allows you to, quite simply, hold it. Useful. It comes with T8 and T6, so you can essentially work on knives. It is the rubber. These hold in very well, and they are relatively easy to get out and put back in with these rubber grommet bits on here. The nice long wedge makes it nice for getting into. If you're trying to wedge something, get in. Like being one thing besides a lever that the long bits do. You know, this makes it great as a lever, but it's never going to get in and to try and turn something. If you want to actually like get it, if it's much larger, this doesn't work. A long bevel does. So now you can wedge it into something that's thicker, and you have a much larger lifting space. Whereas this is really good for smaller. Pretty much everything on here. This is the smallest face. These are the next. And then we start getting into the rest of them. That being said, this is absolutely the Vero Engineering is one of my favorites. And again, if you have one of these laying around, you probably have other ways to handle this, but it will create a nice little essentially handle while you're doing it. The flat. There's plenty of space. The flat on here gives you lots of leverage for twisting, right? So you do get good torque. It does work very well as a driver, as a wedge. It is not, again, it's much more as a wedge than a pry bar. It does work as a pry bar, but it's relatively shallow on the pry. So it's relatively shallow. It's not way up, so you can generate a lot of force. It's relatively shallow. It works way more as a wedge where you can do just little bits. Like if you're trying to pry open a box or some sort of pallet and you're trying to just get this in here and wedge it open a little bit so that you can get something else in there. Or any of those kind of things. It's smooth. You don't have to worry about any machining getting there. Again, it doesn't have a lot of grip, but it does this job as a wedge more than a pry. That being said, one thing, a couple of nitpicks, because this is a fantastic thing. So a couple of nitpicks on this. The rubber grommets are great for holding this in. They are terrible for using the pocket clip on this. I just want to try so if you can see right there how it almost touches the pocket clip. Trying to pull this out of your pocket, those give great retention, but the angle of the pocket clip does not. So it's also difficult to catch the pocket clip while putting it into your pocket because the wedge allows the pocket to literally glide past it without catching it. And that little flat part on it means that it doesn't have an actual kick up to get in the way of the pocket as it's moving over the wedge. If there's one thing I would ask, give a little bit of flat out past these first two chunks. So it's flat and then down, and kick that up so that if you run the wedge along your pocket, this gets in the way. I know it sucks for trying to use it as a wedge and go past, but I mean, really, how big of a task you're going to do? The pocket is really where it goes in. If you're going in, this needs to be able to catch your pocket better, and it could even be a sort of a secondary lift space if you give it enough strength. The pocket clip is fantastic, but it's probably my single greatest complaint in that the rubber grommets make it difficult to utilize, right? The rubber grommets give it so much grip on your pocket, it's really hard to pull that thing out, and it tends to roll them down, and then you're checking it. Like, it's every time you pull it out, it's kind of a crapshoot as to whether or not you're going to lose one of these bits. And they're great to have in there, but I'm always worried that they're going to come out because these stupid little grommets are rubbing on my pocket, because this pocket clip is literally just too tight for its size. One complaint, again, the rest of it is absolutely fantastic. The design, the size, the aesthetics, fantastic. Everything else being a 10 makes the pocket clip and grommet problem an isolated idea. So it's an overly magnified problem, but that's when everything else is so great, the one problem is the only problem you see. So there's that. Next is the TMP tiebreaker. This is a tight chunk of titanium. Let me see if I get tiebreaker. Right, I have this in a couple of colors, essentially just to color match. Basically, just to give really cool colors and color match. That is the entire purpose of having multiple colors. No other reason. These are an Urban EDC Supply Special. This one, as you can see, is smooth on the back. As you can see, the bronze one has the Urban EDC Supply Sagaya design on the right. These are really, really cool. They have massive chunks of titanium, even though you're going to have a weak spot right there where it goes down. That is a fair amount of space for the pocket clip. You can put them on a keychain with this little bit as well. I believe it has been a while. I'm going to do it on camera now because I believe that, yeah, no, it does not. This can spin in here. It does not work as that. But, however, the big hole on here, which is exactly how I refer to it every time, affectionately. Non-magnetic, but there is underneath it, there is a little trough that is the right width for a 1/4 inch bit, and that is a 1/4 inch driver right there. Now, again, it is not magnetic, but it does have both the pocket clip and the area underneath. Let me see if you can see that. I don't know if that's going to... Will that work? Can you see it that way? You might be able to, anyway, you might be able to see that there is a little trough right there. It is just the right width for a 1/4 inch bit. So you have two places of contact. So it's not all the stress on the pocket clip and these screws. There's also some shared by the trough right there, as there's not there's no twist in the trough. The trough actually seems to be finer machined than the clip, believe it or not. The two screws on there do make the pocket clip removable if you do not want it on there and you want to do it a keychain instead, and leaves you a lot of space for them to go in there so you don't have to worry about it, and you still have the ability to do the 1/4 inch drive in that trough. It's not as useful. It to be perfectly honest, the thing that I had found, oh my goodness, where did my tool go? The 1/4 inch drive was one of my more useful ones, as it provides a T-grip, which is really, really nice when you're trying to get a lot of leverage. And for whatever reason, now I can't find my stupid thing. Why when you prepare for a video is everything right there at hand and then you forget where it is the moment you need to actually grab it? Oh well. Anyway, for things like that, you should already have them. But if you have a long drive, this provides a really useful and nice amount of torque in a T-grip fashion, where you can really get more than most small bits will be able to handle. It's useful. A hex head screw that needs to be in there, as this is the most upward space closest to wherever you're driving. You see a hex head screw, you can latch this on it and cinch it down. It is a ton of leverage and torque, and they all have it, which is absolutely fantastic. You never have to worry about how it's going to work. You never have to worry about what you're going to do. It just does things. There, I finally found it. Again, if you have tools like this, you probably already have a driver, but if you have just a regular driver, you can use this as a T-handle on something like this to generate a whole bunch of torque. Again, if you just have something along the lines of this and you're trying to get more torque, you can actually generate a significant amount of torque with a T-handle like that as opposed to just a round one. But I have digressed a little bit into the area of T-handle tools. But that's really the point. There are other things you can do with it. This works as both a wedge and a lever. It has a low incidence of angle as well, but man, that's a lot of titanium that's going to give you a fair amount of leverage. It fits well in the hand while still being light. That is something that you can say about all of these. We'll do a little bit on there. So the T&P tiebreaker, blue one 1.27, bronze one 1.26, Vero Engineering full on 0.99, 0.81. Ridiculously light. Right, so all of these right? So something like this, I believe, is the lightest one. Yeah. Just, right? So all of these are easily tiny, less than, I mean, some of these are in the 13 to 14 gram range. I mean, something like that, that's like 15 grams maybe. 15 grams of steel. So, yeah, again, the heaviest ones are the tiebreakers, and those are slightly over an ounce. They're about 1 1/4 ounces. The Vero Engineering, almost exactly. Oh, that one was 0.99 before. Now we got 1. So 1 ounce, right? So we're looking at some pretty solid, and again, 0.81 versus 0.54. I was wrong about 4 times as heavy. It's not even quite twice, but it is definitely something you notice. So once again, significantly light in the pocket. Do not weigh you down. They're all very useful. There is, however, I mean, let's be realistic. The price of some of these, the machine titanium takes time. There is no way around that. Machine titanium just takes time, okay? So that's just for real. So these are going to be much more expensive than the steel. Do you get more for it? No, I wouldn't say so. Excuse me. Yes, if something the size of the Vero was out of steel, it would be much heavier. But you can get relatively similar functionality out of a similar weight of steel, even if it's not the same size. The only benefit to having the titanium was that you can have them be this big, still be useful for any amount of force that you'll be able to deal with most people's hands, and have it be much lighter. This amount of steel would be heavy. Okay, if this was solid steel and not titanium, it would be heavy. But when you get them lighter, they're useful. And again, for the amount of things that most people are able to use with their hands, being able to wedge something in there, hey, I need to get this in, I need to wedge this, I need to do a small amount of prying, instead of using a knife, which, I mean, let's be real. We all know that we're not supposed to, but when you have something like this, you absolutely almost always try to use it as a Prybars. That's a lot. I mean, let's be real. This thing's more steel than the Prybars. but the handle on it is not meant to, the torsional part of this, while strong, isn't that strong. You can use it as a pry bar, but this would, all of these, just about all of them, even this, can handle more torsional loads than the pivot of your knife. Does that mean that you can't do it sometimes? Absolutely you can. I have done it myself. And sometimes you just have the knife and you use it to lever stuff because you have it in the wedge, which is what all of these do. That being said, I can recommend the Leatherman. Look, these things are out here for, you can't buy these. I would recommend them if you could. I can recommend all these, but here's the reality. There's a very real budget restriction because the difference in a $12 steel pry bar and I believe this is $60. I'd have to go back and look, but I believe this is a $60 machine titanium one. That's a pretty, and the Vero Engineering is even more expensive titanium, no doubt about it. I'm just going to say there's not a lot of value added for the extra money. There are things that you can do, like I said, for color coding. When I bought these TMPs, they're a great deal. I don't know how many of them are still out there. I'll put the link out. I'll put the link to Urban EDC Supply as well as EDC Specialties where I got this. And the Vero Engineering, often you can get at a lot of different places as well. It is a fantastic pry bar. Again, don't let my complaint about the pocket clip flee. The only reason I have a complaint is because I carry this more than the rest. And so the one complaint I have is because it's the only complaint I have. This is a fantastic little pry bar. It's nice and light. It does have knife maintenance tools in it as well as a way to utilize them. Biggest reason I carry it, the pocket clip is an annoyance. I carry this more as a knife maintenance tool and an occasional wedge if I ever have to, not as a real pry bar, so I don't care about being able to wedge it past the pocket clip for any reason other than my pocket. So yeah, this is probably my favorite, but the TMP Tiebreaker comes in multiple colors. It is something you can color coordinate. It is fantastic when it comes to certain things. I mean, as I was saying before, this particular one for this bronzed color is the one I carry with this particular dark brown wallet. The carbon fiber goes really close to the carbon. It's a weird dark bronze color that is really this dark brown that goes well with the fittings. It color coordinates nicely. I'm not going to lie, that is something that's valuable. And when it comes to something like the blue Nick Shabazz, in this particular wallet, these again, Urban EDC Supply, one of my favorite wallets. But the light brown, the blue knife, the blue pry bar, it matches. The reason I bought a $60 one instead is so that I could color coordinate. Is that silly? Yes, a little bit, but that's okay. So there's that. These things are fantastic for what they are. And when you have this in a pen, and even, I mean, I hate to admit it because you all know that I am also carrying, probably a knife with these. But if there's ever a need, I can throw my wallet in my pocket, and no matter which wallet it is, I'll have a pry bar, at least one sharp cutting instrument that I can use. This Cold Steel Lucky one, it is a slip joint. It is a nice little slip joint. It's 35 yen. It has a great edge on it, and it does a pretty good job. It is a usable knife. Is it dangerous? I don't think so. Nick Shabazz. What needs to be said about a Swiss Army Spartan? Right? These are fantastic companion tools to something like the pry bar. Can I open up a pack or something like this? Abso-frickin-lutely. Of course. And I mean, to be honest, there's so much utility specifically with things like just having a pair of scissors on here, tweezers or whatever. This is really a useful thing. And then you go ahead and say, well, okay, you know what I'm going to do with that? I'm going to have these two tools in my pocket. this might, if you don't have, again, if you don't have any wallet, you can put these like even on your keychain. You have essentially, if you have this in your pocket instead of a knife and you have this on your keychain, you don't have a wallet carry like I do, and a pen, you have an EDC carry that will do 80 to 90% of the real world, real life daily tasks that you need things to do. I can file my nails if I have to. I can screwdriver. I can clean my nails. I can open a package, open a letter. I can cut some tape. I have enough here. If I need a little bit more control over what I'm cutting, I have a pair of scissors. I have a pair of tweezers. And I have a toothpick for when I get that gnarly little steak, that stringy piece of steak that just can't seem to get out from in between my teeth. Great little tool for most of the things you get. Anything you need that's more heavy duty, bam. You have a bit. The usefulness of a pry bar, especially if you have a smaller knife in your carry or something like a wallet knife carry, or if you don't have a wallet, you have a keychain carry. Much like this, where fantastic little knife, does great for opening packages and minor little stuff. It's as useful as a utility knife for most daily purposes, especially like letter opening, package opening, all that sort of stuff. Being able to cut without hurting yourself and be able to carry. Pocket, wallet, keychain, does it all. This gets packaged with the pry bar. I have most of my stuff, including some relatively heavy duty tasks, covered with my tools. I don't have to have a knife on me to get it done because I carry them in my wallet. And for anyone who has to deal with people who are scared, or if you go into some place like downtown LA where you have a sub 3-inch blade limit, or any other areas, for those who, I know Los Angeles, I don't know if New York's a sub, but there's a lot of urban areas that are doing sub 3-inch blade limits, which essentially means, utility knives and smaller knives and that sort of thing. I don't need a bigger knife if I have tools for other purposes that I might need a bigger knife for. And that's what a lot of these pry bars are using. And if there's one thing I can tell you, this is not even close to comprehensive. Let's be real. The amount of different styles of pry bars and all that sort of stuff that are out there is almost as great as the knives, if not more. The machining capacities, what people do. I have seen ones where there's little unicorn bottle openers, which I actually freaking want. A little black unicorn with like fiery eyes would be awesome. But anyway, I digress. So those kind of things are out there, you guys, and there's so many that it is as much a collection capacity in its own. Just doing that. So if there's anything out there that I can tell you guys, there's so many of these. You can go to expensive, you can go to cheap. Try and find something that works for you. In the meantime, you guys, I can recommend all of these. It's a matter of your budget. Again, you can't find these, but you can find something like it. You can find all sorts of multi-tools. Check pricing, check your budget, check your needs, and then your styling desires, and get what you can afford. It's really hard to go wrong on these as long as they're made well. With that, you guys, I'm going to get out of here. This has been your Dose of Drew, your weekly dose of Drew. I am said Drew. Go ahead and watch this twice. Comment as much as you like. Be mindful of side effects. And remember to like and subscribe. Again, this has been your Dose of Drew. I am said Drew. You guys have a great rest of your night.